Is it gonna work?
That'll work.
Okay. We're
Get it
gonna
up, right.
open the meeting with a public hearing on our 5-year capital investment plan. This is the first of 2 public hearings regarding our 5-year capital investment plan. And with that, I'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you. So what you've got up on the screen, and there's a few copies on the table, are the first version of our capital investment plan. This has gone before the planning commission. We've got comments from them, and we've received some comments from some of our council members. And tonight we're here to go through those comments. This is a plan that serves as a guidepost. It's a 5-year capital investment plan, and it helps us build our annual operating budget, including our capital expenses of our operating budget. This serves as a guidepost. It sets out a plan of road reconstruction and resurfacing. It sets out a plan of fleet replacement for all of our departments. The model that you have before you is different than what the city has adopted previously. This is based on the municipality of Richmond, Vermont. I researched a number of municipalities and felt that this particular model was as close to suitable for the city of Newport as I could find, and I looked at a lot of different ones. So I'm quite pleased with it. I've gotten comments, as I mentioned, from a couple of council members. What I've got up here are comments that, or questions that we can answer in front of the council. If the council chooses to make changes as a collective body, whether you vote on it or not, I can make the changes right here in real time. And then this will be ready and in time for your next public hearing, which I believe is December 16th. So any changes that are made need a minimum of a 2-week notice. So I've got all the department heads here. And we can start at the top and go right through it if you'd like. And we'll get to comments about the rec department too, so I haven't overlooked anything. Okay. So let's make sure there's enough time allotted for this. So one thing to mention about that is that we're following the statutory timelines. So I don't control those. They're set out in the statutes that are discussed in the opening paragraphs. So I think we can resolve that one. Let's see if it'll resolve. Huh. Or not. We'll make a note to resolve that. What if grants are not funded? What happens to the timing? Well, the first thing that we're going to do is we still have the RCDI grant in place. We have that available to us for extra capacity for the next 2 years. We've had pretty good luck with that so far. We've taken a little bit of a break being aggressive in filing grants while we're going through implementation at this point. We meet with Mike Welch pretty regularly. In fact, he'll be here at our next staff meeting to go over where we are on the status of our grants and where we intend to go for the next 2 years. If grants aren't funded, and as you experienced with the NBRC grant, we file a grant for the full amount and we may get denied or we may have a counteroffer. If the project is important enough for the city council to consider, then they'll come up with alternative funds, and that's exactly what happened with the NBRC grant. So if grants are not funded and something is imperative to take care of, then we have to do the project to take care of whether it's an emergency or an act of God that needs to be immediately repaired. We would have to put our attention into that project and forego other planned projects. We have to reprioritize. So let's talk about the rainy day funds. The rainy day funds is an expression that I used in a memo that I distributed to the council describing the NBRC grant back, I think it was in August. If you look at our restricted funds, you'll see that we don't use that terminology of rainy day funds. We use either restricted, committed, assigned, or unassigned. Excuse me, restricted, committed, assigned, or unassigned. The funds that you're referencing are right here. The NBRC was designated on September 16th, which is in this current fiscal year. Your audit, which should be available at our next council meeting, is going to show a balance of the $611,854 because that's what was there as of June 30th, 2018, okay? So the audit is reflective of last fiscal year.
2019, you mean, right?
Yes.
This June.
Yep. Time goes by so fast. That balance will show next fiscal year, but we're going to track that. And so one thing to note is there a plan to replace our unassigned funds that are now obligated. Basically, when you go through a fiscal year and you're audited each year as we are, we work with an auditor who combs through each one of our accounts. And they're the ones who generally tell us what we have available and what we don't have available. We're monitoring our budget on a daily basis. That's one of Becky Terrian's jobs, is she works with the city clerk and treasurer, and we have segregation of duties. We have multiple eyes on that budget. So as the fiscal year comes to an end, we have a general idea of where we're going to land. We start working with the auditor before the end of our fiscal year so that we have a sense, again, of where we're going to land. Again, going back to the restricted, this is the number that's going to show in the audit. This is what has been committed. There's no telling how fast we'll use those funds. And yes, having 10% of your operational budget is ideal. We're very close to that. We're very pleased to have that number right there. I would remind the council that the council before you, when I started my job in 2015, and we did the budget for 2016, the then council was comfortable having a balance in there of $135,000. So you've got a big range. That's a number that's constantly moving. We're monitoring it, and we're taking care on a regular basis to monitor our budget to make sure we're not running in the negative in any way. That would be a detriment to everybody. Questions or comments? Anybody want to chime in? Okay. See the typo? Okay, who makes the decision? It seems that replacement schedules are frequent, perhaps overly so. And it seems like a lot of money given how many cars are in the fleet. So we do have a standard fleet replacement schedule. For the police, it's one a year. You have 4 vehicles. Where's our police chief? Sorry, you have 4 vehicles in rotation at any given time, 5 vehicles in rotation at any given time. You have a K-9 vehicle, you have a police chief's vehicle, and can you describe for the city council the basis of your fleet rotation?
Yeah, so it's, like she said, 1 vehicle a year. We currently have 5 in rotation. Vehicles are costing taxpayers currently $29,140 a year. My vehicle is a police interceptor like any other, has blue lights, radios in it, and can be used. For example, we're down a car right now because of the one that was damaged in the accident, so the guys are using that car as a patrol vehicle right now. 41 is the sergeant's vehicle, 41 is the K-9 vehicle. It has special equipment to carry the dog in the rear. It can't transport prisoners. 42 is what we refer to as the sergeant's vehicle. So if there's a sergeant on duty and the 2 patrol officers are assigned vehicles, then the sergeant has a vehicle to use. Occasionally our SIU detective will use it if he has to do follow-up investigations and things of that nature. And then 43 and 44 are the mainline, what we refer to as mainline patrol vehicles, which is what the officers are driving every day.
And who makes the decision when the vehicles become cost prohibitive?
I do.
Yeah. And you average anywhere between 95 and 150,000 miles on a vehicle, depending upon its condition?
Yeah, it can depend. So for example, the K-9 vehicle, which is a 2014, only has 66,000 miles on it currently, but that's because it's only assigned to 1 officer, so we try to rotate that vehicle through the fleet so that we're not replacing a vehicle that only has like 50,000 miles on it. The other vehicles, the chief's vehicle has 14,000 miles on it, it's brand new. Patrol vehicles tend to put about 30,000 miles a year on, But the mileage is not really what you should pay attention to because the vehicle is constantly idling. So these are the only vehicles in the city that are run literally 24/7, 365. Sergeant's vehicle has 69,000. The one patrol vehicle was totaled in the accident, and the other patrol vehicle currently has 50,684. So they're each about a year out.
Questions?
Any,
Go ahead.
Just a couple, Mr. Mayor. When does the city anticipate you'll be able to replace the vehicle that was crashed? And I'm just wondering if the police vehicles that are driven in the city have harder mileage, because they say if you drive a vehicle on the highway, it's easier mileage than driving around the city. I'm wondering if that's true, and if the city's finding that out.
Well, I know police vehicle discussion has been discussed years ago about the mileage and it is harder miles in the city, as the chief says, we do run continuously.
Right.
And so it is harder mileage. I have no idea about the replacement of the vehicle that was damaged. I'm assuming it's in the hands of the insurance company.
Isn't it on order?
We're expecting November.
November?
End of November.
Okay.
Is there going to be deductible on that? Or do you know yet?
We received reimbursement for it in the neighborhood of, was it $14,000? I'm going from memory.
14 and change.
Yeah,
After.
yeah,
After the deductible.
yeah. Okay,
Okay.
good. All right, so, Field Avenue seems premature. Tom, can you address why you've got Field Avenue to be repaved or reconstructed in 2021?
Sure. Seeing how we are pretty much at final design for the Main Street, Field Ave, and the Parklet area, should be going to construction next summer. So it's perfect timing really to pave the whole street and the parking lot. The parking lots in the city, if you haven't noticed, are deteriorating. If we don't start overlaying, we're going to lose all of them, really. So I think it's perfect timing. Once we get the intersection done, we can pave the street, pave the parking lot.
And that's part of the downtown transportation grant?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Grant funded or part of the match on the Causeway Vista?
The 80,000 is, well, as everybody knows, we got $250,000 to do the Vista traffic lights. Also extend it down the causeway to renew all the poles on the causeway and the lighting that is, as far as best I can tell, was put in back in the early 60s. They're outdated, they're in very rough shape, and the $250,000 probably won't even cover the Vista traffic light intersection. Back when we did Cumberland Farms and East Main and Weston Ave, that was, and we did most of the work, it was, I think, $300,000 just for that. So that 80,000 is extra budgeting to make that project happen.
Okay. The Glen Road 1.5 mile section, does the correctional facility contribute to that?
That is something I am going to pursue. The last time the Glen Road was totally paved was back in 2003, and they did allot us, I think, $325,000 at the time. But at the time, we were also told they would not do it again. That road's 2.5 miles out. We just paved Highland Avenue, which is just over a mile, at $140,000. So if they don't help us, it's going to be all of that and then some. If they do, well, then we have additional funds to pave maybe Coventry Street or other roads that certainly need it.
Yeah. So we have an agreement with the Department of Corrections that needs to be revisited. I think the last time it was looked at was, oh my gosh, Tom, maybe 2007. And the pump station that was replaced on the Glen Road has triggered a revisit of that. So I'll be sending an email to BGS and the Department of Corrections to trigger that review.
And a little history, in 2003 was the year they expanded. And there was a lot of construction vehicles, and it did a job to the road. And that was the agreement that we worked out with them, was your vehicles and your expansion basically, I wouldn't say destroyed the road, but did quite a job to the road down there. And so that was an agreement that we worked out with them, that we would rebuild and pave, and they helped cover the costs at that time.
Well, Tom knows, even though the road was rebuilt, the substructure under the road is still a lot of clay, and it was never like a super highway. It was a neighborhood street that got redone.
Most of the roads built on Swan. Out
Oh,
through
out there,
so-
Glen Road, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, so expect an update on that at some point in the next several months, once we get a hold of the right people in the Department of Corrections and BGS to revisit that. And again, this is why this entire document serves as guideposts, because it will change as we get more information and draw closer. The Volvo BL70B backhoe, can that be delayed a year?
I'd say this with anything, it's a council decision if you want to delay something, but that piece of equipment is used daily. It is a vital piece of equipment that we have, and we've been experiencing issues with it. It's time to get rid of it, replace it. While it still may be worth something, we can trade it in towards a new piece of equipment. If it dies tomorrow, we're gonna be coming here wanting to buy one, lease one.
that's something you need for every water break, or?
Well, we do have the excavator, but in the winter months, it's more mobile, that backhoe. The loader's out doing parking lots, because every piece of equipment has a job in the winter months. That backhoe stays at the garage and fills the trucks with the salt and sand. If we have a small problem across town, we're not gonna take the truck and the trailer and the excavator on it, we're gonna go and work it with the backhoe. And it's actually been down the last couple weeks, we've had a hydraulic issue with it, and with everything going on, with the project at the beach and whatnot, we were certainly hurting for a piece of equipment.
Okay, next one is the Freightliner M2 first installment, 97 grand.
History on the trucks, what I've always done, we like to keep our trucks at a 10-year turnaround. As you know, those plow trucks live a very hard life. As the chief said, there's a lot of idle time. If anybody's been watching what we've been doing at the beach with the project, for 3 weeks, those trucks run 12 hours daily moving material, so they are run very heavily. They're another vital piece of equipment. So typically what I do with the big trucks is I budget half one year, half the next, and we purchase it. Tries to keep us at a 10-year. We're, you know, as you look down through, we may be close more to an 11-year turnaround. As everybody else knows, inspection of vehicles is getting very tough. So I also keep a very good record of our spreadsheet on all our repairs of our equipment through the years. So it kind of justifies that we're putting major amounts of money into a truck that really just needs to be moved.
And the Caterpillar grader first installment, can that be delayed a year?
Actually, in this current budget year, we were going to replace that grader, but we are having issues. I think I spoke before about it with our sweeper. We've had it since, I think it's 2009, and we put, I believe, 7 radiators into that sweeper. It's the most expensive piece of equipment, of course, with all the mechanical parts in it. It's the most expensive piece of equipment to keep on the road. So talking with my crew and my mechanic, we felt we might want to pursue the sweeper before the grader. So I bumped the grader out. The grader is a critical piece of equipment, but it's not run as much as others. We certainly could skip a year, but at that point, if we're skipping a year, that grader is going to be 25 years old by the time we skip that year.
And that's 23, 24.
Right,
That's what the
correct.
year, yeah.
Correct. It's a 2001.
When are you hoping to replace the sweeper? What year?
We have the funds this year to start looking at it. Back when we bought that sweeper, I think it was 130,000, and we've been talking to some of the salesmen. We're looking at a $200,000 piece of equipment, so it's going to have to be more of a marketing strip to try to market the current one to purchase a new one.
Is that the same vehicle you used to clean the storm drains and stuff?
No,
You have
since
separate.
when I first got here, we had the old Sunback. It used to be a truck. Did very well cleaning out basins. It'd take all summer and we still wouldn't finish the street sweeping. Then we had that Johnston. Then we've gone to this Elgin, and the Elgin actually is a great piece of equipment other than mechanical parts are expensive and the radiator issue has been ongoing ever since we bought it.
But the radiator issue is an indication of where it's placed in the vehicle?
Correct. What it's doing is, it's when you're sweeping, you're moving all that dirt and debris, and it's creating all that turbulence in there. It's actually sandblasting the radiator in. So we go about a year and we replace one.
Now, in the newer models, have they moved it?
We haven't talked with them yet, but
I didn't know if they might have.
we certainly don't want to get
determined-
into that same scenario
No.
when we do buy a new one.
Right.
So.
Okay, next comments, 24-25, your Freightliner first installment. I think that column got moved over a tab.
Yeah, yeah.
So we
And I
can
think
fix that.
basically answered that. I think there was a typo there. Just above that was first installment. That I believe actually should be the second installment.
Okay,
So I do it like, again, I half 1 year or thereabouts, half 1 year, half the next. And our latest truck, just so you know, our latest truck, run it with me, was about $127,000 for a 10-year. And of course, like everything else, they go up every year, so they're not a cheap piece of equipment.
okay. Okay, this is highlighted, the city council makes a decision, so whenever we do an unanticipated expense, we come before the city council and we request permission.
The other thing I'd like to mention is, Seth has 5 vehicles, Rec only has a few. We have 6 dump trucks. Currently have 3 ton trucks, water van, 3 pickups, and multiple other equipment. I know they talked in past years about lease purchasing. Well, that might work if you only have a few pieces of equipment, but with the amount that we have, every 3 to 5 years, you're gonna have a huge balloon payment. And so far, since I've been director, we haven't, I think one of our backhoes that we had an issue with, we actually had to lease purchase. Other than that, I budget for it and we purchase it, we don't pay for leases.
Out of all the dump trucks, the big dump trucks, how many are used in the winter for plowing?
As I said, we have 6. One is, the 6 truck normally would have gotten sold, unloaded. And as you know, we're very close to firing up our new sludge dewatering unit at the wastewater plant. So that 6th truck actually has been transferred to the wastewater plant. And that's what they're gonna load that truck to haul the sludge to the dump. That'll do away with us hiring Senasac to dewater the material and Casella to have their containers come in to have it hauled away. So we're gonna be doing all that ourselves. So every year, they're gonna get a different truck. We'll just keep rotating that truck out when we get a new one at Public Works.
Thought this was already done. The basement has been remodeled in the garage area, the Sallyport area, and what I would call the investigator room. I don't know what else to call it.
Processing room.
Oh, processing room. What the police department is looking at is building a locker room, and that locker room has not been, was not part of the remodeling that was done in 2015 and 2016. So, no, that's on deck. And once all the necessary security requirements are considered, that has to do with a sprinkler system, if I remember correctly. Is there any other?
Electronic door lock.
Oh, okay, that's right. Yeah. So no, that's in the plan. We hope that'll be done at some point.
Mr. Mayor, what would need to go in order for that to happen?
The space for that would be Bob Lillis's office and the corresponding day drop-in center is what it's called.
Would that be relocated somewhere?
We've started conversations with Northeast Kingdom Human Services. We're on a very slow timeline.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that Chief DeSanto addressed skip at least one.
Yeah, I would just say, every time we've done that in the past, it's backfired on us. We've ended up having to buy 2 vehicles in a year. And then skipping ahead.
No,
How
go
many,
ahead.
how many miles per year vehicle? Patrol vehicles, somewhere in the neighborhood of 30,000 miles. Speaking specifically to car 40, I'm gonna guesstimate somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,000 miles. It's got 14 on it now, but that's also because the guys have been using that for patrol, so it's a little bit above where it normally would be. Could this be replaced with a standard police vehicle? It is a standard police vehicle. And it's available for emergency use anytime you guys need it.
Mr. Mayor, what's the standard police vehicle compared to what's not a standard?
The police interceptor package usually has a larger radiator, larger fan belts, bigger brakes. The amenities on the inside aren't as tailored as like a Ford Explorer that you buy off the lot. There's vinyl seats in the back and no pretty trim or anything like that.
Okay, I want to talk about Gardner Park. Okay, so we got some feedback that Prouty Beach and Gardner Park and Newport City Dock and Gateway Building, the playgrounds, which total $70,000 a year, should be outlined in each year with the same level of detail as the other departments. And what I wanted to point out is that this is the explanation in these introductory paragraphs, that it's $70,000 a year is the total amount. And so instead of recreating that in each year, what we did was we put annual facility capital reserves, and we put 70,000 in that first line and in the second. So we tried to conserve a little bit of length in the document. We can break that out if you'd like. I don't know if it's satisfactory the way it is, or if you want it broken out. If we break it out, it'll look just like this, and it'll go down into each category. But that's entirely up to you guys. I do want to talk about this 36,500, because you essentially restricted that. I believe it's Prouty Beach improvements. So you've already assigned the Prouty Beach improvements, so that number right there has been taken care of. So you've hit that target already, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think what might be helpful is to take a look at these things, because I agree, when I was first going through this process, we just take one and pass it around again. When I was going through the process, you'll see the first one that Jim was passing around is the original draft of the very first pass. I took what Andy had done in the past and started looking at it from my own lens. And as you can see, when you go down through the plan, it definitely itemizes and is more descriptive of what types of projects were being done on an annual basis. But if you'll take a look at the dollar figure that's on the bottom of each one, they've fluctuated quite a bit. If you plan your projects according to the year and try to pay for them all or break them up over the course of 2 years, the taxpayer isn't seeing a lot of consistency for the number every year. So one of the suggestions or the thoughts that we had was to start working off of a capital reserve type model where, for example, the tennis courts, the project that we did this year, every year was $1,400, I think, or something like that, put into what we called before the sinking fund for the tennis courts, allowing that to build up over the course of 10 years so that when we have that $20,000 project, it's not all coming out of one budget year. So we stepped back and took a look at it and said, okay, what do we need to budget on an annual basis for each facility that will be consistent for the taxpayer, that will allow us to build up the funds that we need in order to complete the bigger projects that will be coming down the pike. So that's the first page that says draft. That was the first stab at it, and we can certainly hybrid the two of these if you'd like to see that type of detail. If you look at the second page that Jim passed around with the two columns on it, it's also helpful to take a look at, the first column is what we're budgeting. So this is the amount of money that we're putting into the little sinking funds, I guess you put it that way. The second column is the expenditures, so that's the actual projects and what we're spending out of that money that we've set aside each year. So that's where you're seeing the detail of what we're spending. Now those numbers don't match up, because if you look at 2021 for expenditures, you're only seeing $96,500 being spent. But if you go down through to 2023, 24, 25, you're seeing larger numbers like 169,500 and 132,000 for the bigger projects that are coming up. But we're only budgeting the same amount every year, so the taxpayers aren't seeing those big projects coming out all at once, because we've set aside a little nest egg that's allowed us to build over time and complete those projects without having to budget, $100,000 to the dock in 1 year. So that's what that kind of boiled down to. After taking another look at it with your feedback, we kind of agree that it doesn't really describe very well for the reader as is. So I'm certainly happy to take another pass at it and try to extract that a little bit more, if that would be helpful. But I thought at least seeing these two documents might help see where the process came from.
So the goal of this budget is to keep the amount to be raised by taxes for these efforts relatively close together, so there's no big dramatic increases or decreases year to year.
Yeah, but still allowing us to complete those bigger
Right.
ticket projects that are coming down the pike.
Questions for Jess? This is helpful.
I think so too,
Are you clear, Jess, on what you're going to do next?
yeah. Is it the consensus that incorporating that type of information into this would be the best?
I think this chart did it very well, because you can see that as you move down, the excess from the earlier years will be dumped into the later years, and it balances out over a number of years.
Right.
But what I like to see is the expenditures, because I see exactly what you're spending money on. Thank you.
So maybe
That's why I like this.
Maybe we can figure out a way to just put that right into it. Would that be helpful?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. All right, city beautification, deduct 5K each year. So again, this sort of takes over the same philosophy in Jess's budget, that we didn't want to have wide swings year to year, which is why you have 30,000 every single year for the botanical gardens and the waterfront landslide overlook. One of the challenges that we have with our budget this year is finding a vehicle and having it be a cost-effective vehicle. Once we can find a vehicle for the city landscaper, that should last him a number of years. So I don't know what the council's pleasure is on that. If you bring this, I mean, it's a guidepost, so we can certainly deduct $5,000 a year. You're gonna get what you get. Good? And, all right, so explaining how the, I'm calling it Strawberry Acres, it's, no, not Lakemont, the one on the west side that we did before.
Oh, I know, it's the Campbell Cottage.
Campbell.
They had a
Assess-
issue where their system was contaminated and they had to hook on to city water. And the way it was is they have a special assessment on their water bill to pay for it, because they had their own private water system, and when it was deemed unsafe by the state, I guess it was the state deemed it unsafe, Tom, if I remember right?
Yeah, their leach fields were
Leaking into their
leaking
water
into
system.
the water system.
And so basically, they came to the city and all the owners down there agreed to pay a special assessment on their water bill. And this is the same setup for the Lakemont. They will be paying a special assessment on their, this is water or sewer? Water, right?
Water.
Yeah, I gotta keep straight. They'll be paying us, they'll have, when they get their water bill, they'll have a special assessment to pay for the costs.
Correct.
Okay, what's the Gillespie development adjacent to the Lakemont development?
What that is, well, actually, the sewer system that actually picks up all of Lakemont, the city installed and owns. That was put in to actually open up the industrial park. And because of the lay of the land, the sewer actually flows down into Lakemont, and then there's a pump station down there and pumps it back up to Gravity Drive. Currently, St. Laurent Street has no sewer system. So, and we've had, through the years, we've had various people suggest or ask, you know, when their septic systems are starting to fail, if the city could ever pick them up. Gary Gillespie had actually approached us a few years back, as he's got a little development off to the right-hand side of Lakemont, which would be feasible for the city to get down through his property with the sewer system to pick up St. Laurent Street. So that's where this project came into play. He's actually talked about developing his spot, so that would give him access to the sewer system as well as St. Laurent Street.
And that concludes feedback.
Questions from anyone or comments?
The St. Lawrence plan has been on the books for quite a while, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah.
And actually, the design is, really was more of a study. There isn't an official final design for that, not that it would take much to get it. More of the permitting is gonna be more of an issue, because you have wetlands through the Gillespie property, and the bike path, the state path, we'd have to get easements and whatnot, and that and funding.
Okay, anything else on the capital investment plan?
I'd just like to say that I think it's well thought out, and I like to see things planned out, and so that things aren't surprises and all of a sudden you gotta do this or you gotta do that. It's obviously thought, long-term thinking goes into this, and I think that's in the best interest of the city and taxpayers to have these things thought out. You know, it makes perfect sense to me to have replacement plan for vehicles. You know, probably because I come from a long line of mechanics and I know the necessary of doing those sorts of things. Plus, I know, 100 years, it seems like I was on the school board, we had a huge bus fleet and we had a replacement plan for them, so no one was ever startled or unexpected, and we never had a bus break down on the road. So those types of things to me are responsible, and I think, again, long-term planning is important, and I appreciate the time and the effort and the work that went into thinking and planning this out. Thanks.
Anything else? The next public hearing on the plan, which will have a revised copy with everything incorporated.
And what I'm gonna do is have the revised copy ready for the next meeting on November 18th. That gives you almost a month before your second final hearing. So we'll capture the changes, we'll incorporate it into round 2, and poof.
Yeah, because the next public hearing is December 16th,
Yep. So we've got
before the
time.
regular council meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and with that, we'll call the regular Newport City Council meeting to order, Monday, November 4th. It's now 7:10, if I look at the clock. The second item will be to approve the minutes of October 21st, and I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes.
The motion's been made, is there a second? To approve the minutes of October 21st? Motion made and seconded, discussion on the minutes.
Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. Okay. Next is comments by members of the public. We have Ann Shirillo, weighing experimental, democratic process. I can't quite read the second word you put.
Experiment.
Experiment. Okay.
Okay. Takes me a while sometimes to process what's happening in the city. So I wanted to go back because I think it helps us for the future to look at, first of all, the weighing process. I think what was left out of this talk that we had and this ordinance that we had about ATVs was that the citizens of this town provide, I think it's $3.9 million alone to the city each year. Plus we go to the restaurants and the stores in the city and we spend a lot of money. I did not hear in the discussions that were going on, because you got an ordinance right away that was sort of a done deal. It was all, how many roads and whatever, we were all up there to begin with. And what I didn't hear any of you doing, for the most part, was a weighing process. Yes, this might be good for the city economically to have these vehicles come in, and it might help the businesses do better. But let me weigh that against the imposition that it will have on the citizens of the city, and particularly on the citizens whose roads these ATVs are going down. And I didn't hear any of you saying, well, maybe we should only do 2 roads to begin with, because we'll have a smaller impact on the citizens. And having all of you have a discussion about that before you decided what the ordinance would look like. So we are an economic force in this community. If we decided to sell up our houses, we might reduce your grand list. If we decided not to go to those restaurants, we would reduce the amount of money that they're bringing in. And I don't think any way those ATVs that are coming in could make up for the loss of that income. And I'm not trying to threaten the city with anything, but I'm saying that we did not get weighed in the process. And I wanted to let the people who were most impacted speak, but I wanted to have you think about what happened when you didn't even say, well, I weighed all those citizens, and it was worth 5 or 6 streets that would be coming in, as opposed to saying, well, I weighed all those citizens, and maybe it was only worth 2. And then I wanted to talk about experiments and how experiments are done. I was a scientist at one point along the way too, and we always started small with our experiments. Nobody said, let's give 50 million people a polio shot at the beginning. They started with, they probably didn't even start with people, they probably started with something else. But they started with a small population, a small group. And when somebody comes to you from the ATV group and says, we'd like just 2 streets, no scientist would say, oh, give him 6 and we'll do the experiment. You might have said, give him 1. Give them 1 and have them come in and out the same way and see what happens, because it's an experiment for a year. And the third thing I'd like to mention is the democratic process. I heard a comment, I think, from one of the city council members, and certainly from the audience, that said, if you don't like what these city councilmen do, you have a remedy. You vote them out in 2 years. Well, that isn't the way the democratic process works. We expect you, our city councilmen, to have a pulse. Now, it's not your own opinion about what you think ATVs are and how you dislike them or like them when you experience them. You should have a pulse about what the citizens of the community who voted you in want, and how you would feel if it was coming up your street within 10 feet of your house. And I didn't hear people weighing that and letting people know who lived here that you had really thought about them. And you may have come to the same decision, but maybe they would have been happier if they'd heard that you considered them, their economic force, their pain, and that you had done something to reduce what was going to happen as opposed to increase what was going to happen. So please don't in the future. A budget's coming up. A budget will come to you and it'll be all on so many pages, and you may modify it, but then after a while you get sort of like, oh well, this is a done deal. This came to me this way, and this is what I'm stuck with. Please don't do that. Please say, well, let's talk about this amount, $20,000. Do we need $20,000 for this, or maybe would $10,000 do just as well? Do we need to do 3 streets, or can we do just 1? And the person to ask about, should we do it this way, isn't just the person who's coming to you with an ATV group behind them to tell you all about it. It's also how this impacts on the people of 3rd Street and Pleasant Street. So please do something different in the future when you make these decisions. And if you're smart, you know, think about that legislation right now. You could probably amend it right now. And wouldn't that be wonderful? Wouldn't people think then that you've done something for them?
I've let you go over your time, but okay, thank you. We have Penny Thomas, Planning Commission.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I rise to give a shout out for Paul Dreher regarding the vacancy on the Planning Commission. Paul has a master's in architecture from MIT. He has over 20 years experience in planning and zoning for Newport City and Winooski, both as a paid person and as a volunteer. He also is an active citizen in Newport. I see him in Newport Natural or the library or walking around the streets, generally with a child on his shoulders. He's interested and willing to serve as a volunteer on the Planning Commission. I know there have been some mistakes made in the past, and I would certainly hope that I wouldn't be judged only on the mistakes that I've made in my life. And finally, the Planning Commission has unanimously voted to support Paul Dreher's candidacy for this position. So when you have a chance to talk about it, I would hope, and I'm a Penny Thomas resident of Newport, Mount Vernon Street for a decade or so, and I support Paul's candidacy for being on council, on the commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll move on. The next item is Rec Committee member appointment. Rec Committee Chair Jen Smith.
Hi, Mr. Mayor, City Council, that's here. For those of you that may know me, or don't know me, my name is Jennifer Smith. I'm the chair of the Newport Recreation Committee. The reason I'm here today is for 2 reasons, Mr. Mayor. I'm hoping to also just give you a brief update while I'm here, but let's take care of the business. So we had a member, there's a memo that has been provided to you. We had a member who has had to step down from her position, sadly. She's moving on to better things and pursuing a career and furthering her education. We would like to recommend Newport City resident Amy Pickering to be the replacement Newport, the City Recreation Committee. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. Do any day. But we would like to recommend her as the replacement for a temporary term right now until everybody's up for voting in March. So up for the renewal time in March. She's already shown a really great interest. Even not being officially appointed, she's volunteered at the coin drop that we had recently. She's already attended meetings. She is volunteered to help us with other things already. So that it would be our recommendation to have Amy Pickering be the replacement. And so I don't know if the city council approves.
Questions, council members on this? then we would need a motion.
I'd make that motion.
Motion. The motion's been made, is there a second? Seconded to appoint Amy Pickering to the Recreation Committee, and this would be until March of 2020.
2020.
So a motion's been made and a second. Any discussion on that? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, motion carries.
And if I might just have one more moment, Mr. Mayor and City Council, I just want to let you know, kind of an update for the committee at this point. You know, we've been working really hard to fundraise, to put that playground into place next fall. And we did recently have our coin drop, which was a very successful coin drop. It brought in over $2,000. So a big thank you to anybody who participated in that. And that puts us at almost $9,000 to date, fundraising. And so that's over a third of the way for the rec committee's portion that we've committed to through the fundraising efforts. There's all kinds of other efforts that we're putting into place to get the overall budget, including the grants and things, but the rec committee is continuing to work hard to do their part in the fundraising. We have events coming up in the next couple months, including a dance at some point, and a golf fundraiser is still in the works, and some big things that are coming, but I just wanted to give that update.
Great, thank you. Excuse me. The next item is invitation to the Light Up Night Parade. Bob Kelly. Bob is in the back. Good evening.
Here just to explain the parade to you and answer any questions. My wife came up with the idea for the Light Up Night Parade and had one last year. It started at Price Chopper in Derby and went to the junior high. And when we were done that, we just thought that's way too short and we'd like to include Newport in it also. So this year we're going to start actually at the old teddy bear factory. Doug Spates has agreed to let us use that for the staging area. And go from there down Main Street, up East Main, and all the way to the junior high again. And I'd like to invite everyone to light up their car and join in the parade, a truck, anything you want. Laura's got some entry forms that she can make copies of. I know Paul's interested in doing it. This is, again, my wife's idea, and she's the one doing all the work on it, dragging me along with her. She doesn't like public speaking, so that's why I'm up here. Is there any questions you have on it or anything? I know last year we had 6 vehicles, which was a slow start, but we were happy to get it going. This year we've got over double that already committed.
Do people contact you for this form, or is it, because I had someone say, what's the best way to get a hold of the form? Contact you directly?
Yeah, the newspaper is actually going to run a form in the paper for us also. Yeah, she's been going around, I think she's visited over 70 businesses in the area so far to tell about it.
And what's the deadline to register?
December 7th at 5 o'clock, yes.
Is that
And the parade is December 7th. We start rolling at 6 o'clock. We estimate roughly an hour to go the whole way at around 10 miles an hour. We're coordinating between the PD and the Sheriff's Department to have officers at every light along the route, so everything goes smoothly. We just take one lane of the road, so the other lane remains open for normal traffic, emergency vehicles, anything.
Questions from council members?
Not for Bob, but just curious about the process of approving this event. I don't know if you or Laura or Jess wants to answer that.
So these guys came initially, asked the rec department about doing this, and we're initially gonna kind of fly under the radar as a regular vehicle parade, so, or a regular vehicle procession, not stopping any traffic or anything like that, because it was just gonna be vehicles with their lights out. So we said, okay, we can fly under the radar and just go through traffic as long as you obey the traffic laws. And then the parade started to expand a little bit and have some other types of vehicles that were interested. And so we said, okay, at that point you're starting to jump out of the threshold of like a funeral procession or a regular vehicle procession. So we need to look at some safety stuff. Double checked to see if they were having foot traffic or foot, walkers in the parade. They said no, just vehicles, but maybe slower than the normal speed and some different types of vehicles. So decided, okay, then we better chat. Travis and I sat down, looked at the route to see where the intersections were that might be questionable from a safety standpoint, and are in touch with Kirk at the Sheriff's Department to make sure that those intersections are going to be covered. So we've got that portion of safety in control. Because they're not requesting any fees to be waived, then this is not something that technically needs to come under the council under the previous policy. And of course, at this point, we don't have a policy at all, but so that's because they're not requesting anything, and they don't go through. It's just a contracted service as if somebody else contracts with the police department for an event.
And I'd just like to mention too, I know you're working on maybe another policy. If you do, try to keep this event in mind. This is something we want to be an annual event. We're hoping everything from maybe bicycles on up to semis in it.
So everybody that bike in the winter, you're gonna have to have the fat tired bikes, I guess, because that's what goes on the snow. That's a long ride from Newport to Derby if it's 20 below.
And it's all uphill.
And it's all uphill, yeah.
Yeah, there's some fanatic bike riders. We're hoping we can attract a few.
Okay, well, great, thank you. This sounds like a great event.
Good. Have a good evening.
You too, thank you. Gotta keep that out. All right, Dan, I won't say that. The next item is the addendum to the recreation rate and fee schedule to include commercial boat docking fee. We have a memo from the city manager and Jess Booth, and it's regarding the lease for the Northern Star. Would you like to just give an overview?
So back in, I think it was September 9th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, September 9th, the city council approved the annual rates and fees schedule for Parks and Recreation. That included a little bit of, well, included everything from docking rates to campground to field use to everything else that they need to attend to. What it didn't include was an update to the commercial rate for boats. And so we have only one commercial rate for a boat. So we met with the board of directors from the Memphremagog Maritime, Community Maritime, and worked with them over the past couple of weeks to come up with a rate that was fair and justified and allows them fair budgeting to be able to start their first year, which will give them some idea of what their trends of use will be as well. The city wants to be in a position to help them meet their goals, so we came up with a rate that's outlined in your memo. A new summer commercial rate at $72 a foot, billed once seasonally. That would stand for May through October. That reflects current 20% increase over our current non-slip residential rate, similar to the formula used in Burlington. We also realized that a winter rate makes sense for them because we provide much fewer services during the winter. We came up with an amount of $10 a foot, and the reason this is appealing is because it recognizes that we're providing value in the winter months for them to be able to store their boat, but at the same time, the game changer for us is that they're willing to install their own meter, their electric meter, so we're certain that in those winter months, those expenses will be covered. That was something that we were worried about going into this, but we're very pleased with the work that we did with the board of directors. So what you have before you is something that has been vetted by the board of directors, something that they can agree to, and something that we would recommend the city agree to as well. It covers expenses, it allows them a starting point. They'll be subject to the same rates and fees increases or decreases in the coming years, they're aware of that. Seems like it's a win-win for both. So if the council approves this, we'll add this to the rates and fees that were approved back on September 9th, and we'll issue them the same lease that anybody else would have with these rates and fees indicated.
And with this, the annual fee, this includes both winter and summer rates, would be $5,330 for the season, for the year.
Yeah.
Questions from the council on this?
You know, you put in here, it doesn't include use of municipal facilities or for ticketing of restrooms. Did you talk at all about that?
Oh yeah, we have got some work to do on that, so they'll be coming back before the council in the coming months. Right
So-
now, the gateway is under lease,
Yeah,
and that lease expires at the end of May. So we've got to get a feel as to whether or not there's interest from the current leaseholder, Steve Grove, as to whether or not he wants to pursue that.
now does the gateway lease include the building off to the other side?
The dock building?
Yeah,
No, it does not.
okay.
No.
And the dock building was where the office was before, right?
Right, but now that particular space is being used by the harbor master and Customs and Border Patrol. So we've been talking to them about different possibilities, including a freestanding small building that they might put up, but we're still talking about what could work best for them at this point. So given that the lease for the gateway doesn't expire till May, we'll get a handle on Steve's wishes going forward. And depending upon his wishes, we may put that out to bid starting in February. So there's some unknowns, and that's why this only includes the rent for the boat at this particular point. But
Thank you.
we'll likely come back.
I know in the past, it was talked about possibility, because I know it was discussed, of a portable building out by the boat on the dock that could be put out for ticketing. That was something in the past that we had talked way back. But any other questions from any council member on this lease rate? And we would entertain a motion to approve the slip fee for the Northern Star. It would be for the year 2020. Will be, it's $5,330. Motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. Okay. The next item is the municipal plan draft, confirmation of receipt. Charlie?
What this is, you all have copies of it now, is the Planning Commission has updated the existing plan for known changes that have occurred. And this is an amendment to it, not a completely new plan. The purpose of the amendment is to keep it in place for another year and a half, 2 years, while the Planning Commission in the city goes through the process of doing a completely new plan. State with, in compliance with state requirements. The new ones will be in effect for 8 years instead of 5. The one we have now has been in place for 5 years, we'll be in for a couple more. But we need to do more forward looking for the next 8 or so years going forward in the future, into the future. So what you have there is an amendment to the existing plan that's updated. Tonight is, you receive it, starts off the official implementation period, which is required by law. On Wednesday, I'll be emailing the neighboring towns, NVDA, and the state agency, I get it right, Agency of Commerce, Housing and Development, their copy for their review. The first hearing will be held by the Planning Commission on December 11th. After that, it will come to you at the council, and you have to have 2 hearings on it. There's a timeline of, I think you have to wait 30 days from the Planning Commission for your first one. So your first hearing will come in January. You have to have a second one, which I'm estimating will come probably the first half of February. And so we can have it implemented before the current plan expires on March 2nd.
NVDA's got to give their blessing technically, right? NVDA has to have it approved too, or recommend adoption?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what their timeline is,
I'm not sure.
but it's after we approve it? Is that how that
I
works?
believe it is.
Yeah,
yes.
okay. Questions from council members? So this is basically just giving the plan, the formal procedure, of giving us the plan,
Yes.
and then we can start going through it.
Right, the whole process through the February is designed to generate as much public input as we can and give the public a chance to review it. On Wednesday, among other places, it will be on the city's webpage, so that any member of the public who wants to look at it can simply go to the webpage and look it over. There'll be copies of it, a copy of it at least downstairs in Jim's office, where people can go in and look through it. And people are free to make comments if they want in writing. I'm mailing them in. They can email them to me. They don't have to come to the public hearings if they have a concern they want to express. And that is stated, there'll be a public warning in the newspaper prior to each hearing. The public warning will come out about the middle or the last half of this month. It has to be 15 days minimum prior to the actual hearing on the 11th of December, and so on.
All right, any questions from council members on the procedure, or the process, I mean? No? Well, we have a little light reading to do. Thank you, Charlie.
Do you need to vote?
I don't know if we have to vote on that. We don't have to vote, I don't believe. I think we just accept it, right?
Yeah, I think for the legal process, if you just had a motion to accept it.
Oh, okay,
that's
so we
all.
better do that
Just a motion that you have accepted it, so it's officially recorded in your minutes.
that we've
because
accepted what you.
It is a legal step in the process.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
The motion has been made, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, discussion?
Is the motion that it sounds like the motion is that we're approving it as opposed to a confirmation of receipt of it.
Where the motion would be, we're voting that it's confirmation that we have received the plan.
Okay.
Not that, we're not approving the plan, we're just receiving the plan. Okay, so a motion.
No, you're just receiving a copy of it at this point.
Yeah. So a motion has been made and seconded, discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. The next item is the vicious dog complaint. And we have Mark Roy and Royce Lancaster. This is a formal hearing, and I have procedures that I must follow. It's been a long time since I've had to do this, so you'll have to bear with me on the procedures. Okay. The notice of the warning of the hearing was on our agenda, the vicious dog complaint. The complaint which was received, we received a copy of the complaint from Royce Lancaster, which described the complaint. A copy of the complaint was sent to Mr. Roy, and I believe you received a copy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The next thing I have to make sure, anyone on the council have any conflict of interest and/or ex parte communications with either Officer Lancaster or Mr. Roy? Okay. I need to have you come up, and any witness you may have, also Officer Lancaster, come up. Wish we could get a couple chairs. We need a couple, yeah. Yeah, we'll get that in a second. Yeah, we'll get that in a second. And the only people who are going to be allowed to speak here will be the people that I'm going to swear in right now, other than the council, who is the hearing board, and who may ask any questions. So if you all want to rise and raise your right hand, I don't believe we have to, I believe it's just this. I hereby solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Just... Oops, what did I do with my... Oh, I was just gonna have you sign, both sign, have you sign in. Yeah, we'll have that for the record. Yep. All right. Okay, at this time, I'd like to hear from Roy, Mr. Roy, and if you have any...
Should I stand up, Tom?
No, you can stay seated. Just, you can present any evidence.
Yeah, I just kind of want to show a general idea of what who the dog is.
Yep.
So I had a couple problems with my dog. He is a male pit. So he's always been pretty good. I've had him since he was little. He's been my daughter's dog. She's 2.5, and I have her full time. He's been with her since she's been born. He's never been vicious. He never had any problems. So I thought it was a good idea to invite a female dog to the house. She's not fixed. He's not fixed. I didn't know that would affect, his, I guess aggression. He's focusing on like protecting her and stuff. And so he ended up, she was one that got bit.
Yeah, well, that night, I don't know, he's really protective of her and like right on top of her all the time now that she's in heat. And that night he was right beside her and I went to go put a blanket over my kid and he obviously thought I was doing something wrong and nipped at me.
And he also got out and I guess he got slipped off the collar and the neighbor was trying to say that he bit at his leg and all that, which I don't know if I believe fully because that dog's been around for the full time there. And he's never had an issue with the neighbor or his son. He loves kids and I've never had one problem with him. And there's other alternatives than just deeming him vicious and getting him out of town. Like, even if I gotta bring him out with muzzles, whatever, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, even now I've kind of worked it out so like when the kids are home, like when they get home from school or something, I put him inside his kennel or something, which he's pretty happy, he's kennel trained. And he has everything he needs, and other than that, he's a really good dog. And I got an appointment Wednesday too to get him fixed and all that. And this is the appointment.
No, these want us.
Yeah, this is general idea of like, the background of the dog.
Yeah, then we got that because of how the dog is.
Then we also printed out some stuff about dogs and how their attitudes change when, there's a female that's in heat around and stuff. And, there's just other alternatives than just deeming him vicious. I know it's easier to do that and get him out of town, but he's also, he's a family member for me, I got him because I was going through a rough time, and my kid and all that.
If we want to look at past those, I just wrote.
And I understand where it's coming from and all that. just general idea of like, you know, instead of, you know.
Oh, usually it's fine.
Because I've had him literally the whole
Kids
time.
can jump on top of him
And he's
hit him
never
and
done
stuff and it's fine,
anything.
but now that she's in heat,
So I
it's a
just,
little
I'm
different.
hoping maybe instead of just being vicious, seems how he's never really had any problems, if there's ways around it, you know, like if we could come to some kind of conclusion, you know, get him everything he needs. I did get him a 10-in-1 vaccine from Tractor Supply, which did not have the rabies vaccine in it.
Didn't know that.
Didn't know that. I just kind of took it as it was, and I was like, boom. But I also was going through a lot, you know, custody battles for 2 years now, you know what I mean? So, which is no excuse, but you know, it kind of sidetracked it working full time doing that, and you know. I mean, even if we get him fixed, you know, get him all his shots, or whatever, just the rabies shots instead of 10-in-1. I think you're right, the 10-in-1, right?
I believe it.
Yeah.
I did check that.
So I was hoping maybe, you know, once they get him fixed and all that, if maybe we could, you know what I mean, if there's a way around it, just being vicious and saying get him out of town because of the
Okay. Is he licensed?
No, not yet. Like registered?
Like a dog license from the city?
I can't solicit them, correct? Yeah.
Well, it needs to have the rabies shot.
Yeah, it needs to have a rabies shot.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll do all that, I'll get everything, whatever it takes.
Did you wanna go, anything else before I,
Yeah, that's the appointment, but yeah, this just, I don't know, explains how dogs are different. You know, certain-
Yeah, that matters.
I don't wanna keep this. 'cause
No, that-
Yeah.
They need that back.
I don't want you to miss your appointment.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
want,
give
no,
us it.
I've been keeping that all along.
Yeah,
But that's just to show, you know, I did set something up.
yeah, thanks.
I did set something up, you know, just to,
Fix them. It'll be a little different.
and it shows here even when there's a female, you know, it's obviously urine marking, lack of focus, aggression, and then the difference between a neuter dog or whatever.
We have these.
Oh, pardon.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. That's it, right, where are these?
So there's,
Okay. Minute, no point.
I'll just keep all that together. That here, okay. Anything else? No.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Turn it over.
Okay, thank you. So I came into this a little bit late. Officer Sykes and Smith responded on the 19th to the initial call about the neighbor having the issue with the dog. The dog's name is Bubbles, by the way, Bub for short. But I do have some evidence, which is Officer Sykes' reports from the Valcor system. There's also my letter that was certified, which I believe the council has, but it's also included in this if everybody wants to take a copy of that as evidence. Can I continue?
Yeah, go continue.
So the incident started on the 19th about 5:30 p.m. As I said, Sykes and Smith responded to the complaint of the dog being loose. The neighbor, Mr. Carlson, reported it was the dog Bubbles was acting a little aggressive. Neighbor. No, that's the name I have. Yeah. And so while while Mr. Carlson James was outside, Bub actually went after him and grabbed or went at his leg near his calf muscle, and then also tried again and bit at his arm. The Bub left a hole in the shirt, but it did not break any skin at that time. So the officers were there, Smith and Sykes, and tried to get Mr. Roy's attention. I was knocking on the door, and Bub was out there barking at him and stuff, so they were trying to get him inside. At that time, he seemed to get a little more aggressive when they were getting near the house and near the door, and so they actually sprayed a little mace because he was kind of charging and stomping his front feet, and Sykes put his hand out because the dog was getting close to try to just calm him down or that action, and actually Bub bit his knuckle on his ring finger, just a little, it did break the skin, but ever so slight. So at that time, Mr. Roy came out and was able to get Bub taken care of in the house. So that was the 19th. As most of you know, probably I was animal control for 20 years. So what happened was on the 21st at 0500, I replaced Sykes and Smith. So when I came in, they were telling me about it. And there was the issue of the not being registered here in the city, and of course the rabies vaccination issues. So as Mr. Roy testified, he said that he gave him that combo shot and thought that that was included. Officer Sykes asked me to follow up with Tractor Supply, which I did. Rabies is not included. So I went to go talk to these two about what we do from there, see if there was anything else that we missed as far as rabies shots or whatnot. So at that point, I said that Bub had to be quarantined for 10 days because it did break skin, it didn't have the rabies shots, kind of standard protocol. While I was there, that's when I found out that Bub also bit Sarah on Sunday, the next day on the 21st, excuse me, on the 20th. So with that totality in mind, again, after being animal control for so long, kind of had the history and background, so I said that I was deeming the dog Bub vicious per our city ordinance, just to protect the city and its citizens. I told Mr. Roy that, and that the intention was that the certified letter be forthcoming. I didn't get that done on the 21st, unfortunately. It went out on the 22nd. And so what happened was it was certified mail on the 22nd. Post office tried to deliver it, and on the 24th, and it was not successful. They left a slip, come pick up your mail, and unbeknownst to me. So I checked on the 31st, and it was still sitting at the post office. So that was last Thursday. Had a discussion with these guys saying we're past our timeline for our ordinance. If they were requesting an appeal, I need to know so we could have this hearing. He said he wanted it. Saturday, I believe it was, he picked up the certified letter this weekend. And this morning, Lieutenant Bingham told me that we're having this hearing tonight. I found Mark, and here we are.
Questions from, go ahead.
So, if you were allowed to keep this dog in town, what measures would you take to ensure that no one is going to, anyone in the public or anyone in your household is going to be bit by this dog?
Okay, well, starters, like Monday, I'm gonna go get them all, get everything neutered, everything. And then the plan so far is it's working where when kids are in the house, he goes to the kennel, everything's fine, because he has everything. Kennel's pretty big, if you saw it, you wouldn't feel you'd be there, you know. When he's outside, you can also put a muzzle on him, harness, and a bigger chain. Because last time, usually, honestly,
We will go down.
Yeah.
Instead of putting him out. Because we used to have him on a leash, like hooked into the ground.
Yeah, but it
he
says
got
collar
kept
off that
loose, and, yeah. So now we walk him.
So he's outside unsupervised, even though?
No, he
No,
was
before all
and then
this.
he got loose, and that's why the.
Listen, this dog, before a female got in the picture, this dog was the type where you could leave the front door open, he would
won't
stay
leave
in the
the
yard, just, you know what I mean, come in, he was waiting. I used to bring him into, you know, bring him everywhere. You know, everyone, he never did anything. I never introduced a female dog to him, and he's just going nuts. So, with that said, you know, I'll take any measure I have to. Because he is also, you know, he's actually a really good dog.
You still have the female dog?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but we have to keep him separate.
Because female dogs never stop going into heat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even after they're fixed, right?
Yeah, even.
Yeah.
No, they
And,
get fixed and then they don't.
I've had male and female together, and the male still thinks he's capable.
Even after she's fixed?
Even after he's fixed.
Both dogs fixed?
Well, no,
They
the
both tried?
female needs to be fixed.
So, I guess he's always leashed when you walk him.
Yeah. Ever since he
Ever
got
since
loose
this
that day,
incident.
we've been
Yes,
walking
before
around.
then,
And a more secure harness if he's chained.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Is your yard fenced, or is it?
No, sir, it's open.
That's why we've been walking instead of hooking.
Yeah.
Because the neighbor's right there.
And I figure if we have control of them, if we have control of them, you know, if we're always with them, you know.
Well, she still got bit even though she should be in control, right?
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I neglected it. I believe, if I remember correctly, above is 14 months, is that what we said? It was just over a year, yeah.
14 months.
Just further info, I forgot to tell
So
you.
it's still,
Yeah, he's still
He's-
It's his first female that he's coming
This,
into
yeah, this is the
contact
first
with.
female he's ever been around. Males, he's fine. Female, I guess, now he's like trying to be a hot shot, I don't know.
Go
Well, I was
ahead.
gonna say, so I completely understand the love of a pet, of an animal, and that they're, you know, part of the family, and I totally and completely get that. We all choose whatever type of animal that we want to take into our home. My biggest concern is follow through on your plans. It concerns me that you knew a certified letter was coming and you did not pick it up.
Yeah, well, I did.
It concerns me that the police came to the door and didn't answer it.
Oh, no, we were napping and then we came
So
down.
those types of things raise concern
Yeah,
for me.
Totally understand.
So that leads me to, how are we going to be assured that if a plan were in place to, you know, keep the dog muzzled, keep the dog, you know, all these things, that whatever a plan was, how can the city be assured that that is going to be followed?
That's totally understandable, and I get where you're coming from, but I guess you just have to, it's something I'm gonna do. I understand there's really no way to be sure, because I don't think the officers are gonna come out every day and check on me, but it's just something that I'll do.
Would you,
'Cause they
could you submit confirmation of the shots
Oh, yeah.
being fixed and
Yeah,
neutered
Monday
and
is
spayed for the
Derby.
female?
Where is Derby?
I could do that. I could do that, that would show there that I'm taking that step, therefore,
What's the name of the place that's in Derby?
that's
What
Derby
is it
Pond,
called?
Derby Pond,
Yeah,
Derby Pond Animal Hospital.
it doesn't say it on here.
But I understand where you're coming from. With the door, I didn't hear them at the door right off. And my problem was, what time was it? It was pretty, what was it, like 7:40?
They said it was 17:20, so 5.
Yeah, it was later.
Yeah, so I must have just fell asleep or
On a
something.
weekend.
And the dogs were outside on leashes. So I was like, all right, well, passed out real quick. And then I woke up to, I heard Bubs barking. And I'm like, oh, okay, something's an issue.
And the door was open when we went out and the officers were there.
Yeah, the door was open too.
Yeah. Because he knocked on it and it came open.
Other council members have any questions or?
When was it you had brought the female dog?
It was right before all of this happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
But like a week, I don't know. But he had been acting funny since she came around.
Yep.
Right on top of her and yeah.
Trying to love on her all the time.
Doesn't want anyone near her.
Following her around all the time. The kids are fine. The kids, they roll around and all that. He doesn't really.
It doesn't bother them. It's just if anyone goes near her.
So you're keeping both dogs?
Well, all the female pit, that's hers.
Yeah. And the other one's his.
And the other one's mine. So.
But they're all in the same house, you live
Yeah.
together?
Yes.
So they're
Yeah. I'd like to see how neutering him and all that would
Well,
change his
obviously
attitude.
should have
Because
to
obviously
too.
I have a house, I have kids, so I'm not gonna keep a vicious dog. If he's gonna continue to act up on my own, and I don't need, you know, I will make that decision even if I was able to keep him, but he gets crazy, obviously.
Has the female dog been fixed? I think-
No, she
No.
needs to.
She's gonna.
Is that scheduled too?
No, not yet.
No, we're gonna do one dog at a time, because I was like
I almost
$250,
scheduled it today.
$250 bill. So I'm like, all right, get it done Monday. And then probably my next paycheck's Thursday.
Probably just do better, so I gotta make sure that she's not.
Next Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have something? No? Does anybody have? I want to allow plenty of time for questions from council members. and
So since
answers.
this time, it was October 21st?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
when she was bit,
It's
yeah.
probably, yeah. It's probably
Where's the
around
dog
like the
been
10th.
since then?
For 10 days he's been.
He was in the kennel and he still is.
Yeah,
Well,
he's
in
not
our
bad.
crate. At home. They each have their own crate. One's in the kitchen and one's in the laundry room.
I can watch your house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I thought he had to be, since
Yeah.
he wasn't vaccinated,
And we
he
still
had
have
to
it
be
in there just
quarantined.
I just want to make sure till we get to this
11
point.
quarantine in-house instead of the pound.
Okay.
So it's been, yeah.
And I've
He's
kept it
still
in there
just
since
'cause-
till this day. I just wanted to make sure.
Except for walking outside.
The only thing is, if the council decides to let him keep it, obviously he's gonna get the tags once the rabies shots are given, which will be the same time as the being neutered. So that's the only thing, just to make sure that doesn't get lost.
Rabies and shot.
Rabies is the only thing that we need for the registration tags here in the city.
Okay, then what do I do? Come back here, register?
Downstairs.
Yeah, when you register, it's in his office.
Okay.
Do I have to bring the proof in?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you'll need a copy, keep a copy of rabies certificate.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Roy or Lancaster?
I guess I would just caution that if another incident happens, that, you know, I don't know what the council's gonna decide at this point, but,
If there's another issue with him biting him, get rid of him, done. Put him down.
Yeah, we should probably just put
Because at
that
that point,
piece
it'll
in.
become a pattern, you know. And like I said, I got a house full of kids, you know. I can't have anything,
Right.
you know.
Okay, anything else? Then we need to a motion to either, hold on, bear with me on this, because it's been, how many years? It's only like the second one in 20 years that I think we've.
Oh, wow.
We either adjourn the hearings to a date and time to get more evidence, or close the proceedings. Do we need any more evidence that anyone think?
I just have a question, can we impose conditions?
Yes, but that's the next step.
That's the next.
We have to close this hearing, and then we either go into a deliberative session behind closed doors, or we can deliberate publicly per the procedures.
If I may, Mr. Mayor. So in my letter, I deemed him vicious and just said to remove him from the city. That's what I've done numerous times over the years, and it's worked pretty well instead of having the dog euthanized, which our ordinance does cover. So that was the letter that I took, and there is some leeway in our ordinance for as far as conditions.
Right. Okay, so I would need a motion to close the public hearing, a procedure.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
A motion's been made to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Discussion on that. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The hearing is closed. Now, do you want to deliberate in public or behind shut doors?
I'd like to do a deliberative session behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors, okay. We need to vote to enter a deliberative session. We need to vote to enter a deliberative session, which will be behind closed doors.
I'll move for that.
A motion been made. Is there a second? Seconded, discussion. Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're gonna go into a deliberative session. Okay? All right, we've made a decision. I guess one question, when was the appointment for? Monday?
Yeah.
Monday, the 11th? Okay.
Sure.
The 11th at 8:30 a.m.
Okay,
Derby Pond.
yeah, okay, just wanted to. All right. This is the decision made. Whenever Bubbles, that's the dog's name, yes, is outside, must be muzzled, on a leash with a secure harness or collar. If outside and you tether him to a post or chain, not they use chain, that's harsh, but tether, an adult has to be outside
Okay.
watching the dog all the time.
Okay.
The condition also is within a day of Bubbles getting his rabies shot, you need to register him
Okay.
bring the certificate and register him with Mr. Johnson
Okay.
in the city.
The other stipulation is within 30 days, you have, if your dog is staying there,
Mhm.
needs to have a rabies shot
Mhm.
and registered with the city.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
all right,
And those are all the stipulations that we're putting on.
okay.
Okay?
I'll make the appointment for
I'll
the
put
day
this
for
in
now.
writing, I'll put this in writing and get it sent to you within a couple of days.
Okay, yeah.
I'm
Sure you have that.
sure I can get it, yes. Just
Port Seven Landing, is it?
It's 41 Park.
41 Park,
Right on the east side.
yeah, Park Avenue.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I will put something in writing, but that's what we decided.
Thank you guys very much.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
I think the council still has to vote, don't you, on this? Because otherwise, you deliberated, but you haven't acted.
Oh, you're probably right. I'm getting,
mean,
so,
I'm just
I'm
offering.
thinking of her. So,
I moved that
Well, I
we
just,
approve the condition.
yeah, just to be probably safe on that, yeah. Mr. Ross made a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded, discussion? Then all
The written decision of the select board will serve as its final decision.
That's what I thought, we didn't have to take a
They
vote.
have to.
It just says the written, I thought we just do it in writing, we don't have to vote, but we'll vote anyway.
but, I mean, okay, but you have to agree somehow.
It's right here. It says the written decision, 1 VSA 312E, quasi judicial hearing, this process is,
Analogous.
thank you, yeah, to a jury deliberating in private during court proceeding. The written decision of the select board will serve as its final decision.
So, but,
This came with legal advice from the Vermont League.
I'm
And
not-
so,
I'm
I
not-
got legal advice. We will vote anyway, just to make the
no,
press
I'm
happy.
not, I
Then,
just.
no, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. There.
So was it unanimous? That's
Yes.
all I wanna know is how the members decided, how you present your answer is, thank you.
Okay.
Who seconded that?
I think Bill,
Dan moved the motion.
yeah, I think Bill said
Sure.
it.
Okay,
Yeah. Okay,
all I wanted to know.
all right, I will put it in writing within a couple days, most likely. I'll go home and write it up and get it mailed to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Good luck with the surgery.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. You guys have a great night.
You too.
Oh, sorry, I'm gonna hit your butt.
Go on.
I'll give you all copies. You're gonna get copies?
Until Thursday.
You have, no, you have copies of all the evidence submitted, because you're gonna wanna keep it on file. I got all the evidence, I've marked it, I've got where everybody signed in, and I'll write out, I can read my handwriting, but I'll write out what we decided.
I just need that to post it in the minute.
Yes, okay. Moving on. New business, Mr. Johnson.
I'll wait for my old business. I think mine's old business.
Okay, new, new. All right, old business, Mr.
Can't
Johnson.
wait any longer then, will I? I've got documents here to sign for a loan for council some weeks or months back approved for built a loan for $450,000 for the sludge dewatering press and two possibly aeration blowers. So the council just needs to sign these documents. It's for $450,000, be 10 monthly installments of principal, and into $47,000 each. That's not right. Yeah, 10 monthly installments. 10 annual. No, it's not 10 years, it's only 4. It's only 4 years, or whatever it must be. It says 10 monthly installments of principal interest. Oh, okay, $47,938 each, starting June 1. That's why they delayed the payment until June 1, 2020. And it matures December 1st, 24. I think they got the 10 monthly thing wrong, but
Is this urgent? Do you want to check?
I'll get it changed.
Becky doesn't look like she has a lot of
You
confidence
can-
over there.
You know.
What's, I didn't see the documents, but I thought it was 2 payments a year.
payable in 10 monthly installments. That's not right.
Well, if it's 4 years, 2 payments a year, that'd make only 8 payments. It's 5 years? So 5 years at 2 payments per
10
year,
payments, but it should
that's
be,
10 payments.
should be 10 payments, should be just
10
10
payments,
payments, period.
right. They've got it typed wrong on it.
I'll get it redone.
Okay.
Never mind, I'll bring it next time.
It'll be older business next time.
It'll be old.
Okay, I'm done.
Where am I? Old business?
No.
Old business, old business,
No.
no, okay. Okay, the next is executive session to discuss the appointment of a public officer, 1 VSA 3133A3. And we would need a motion.
So I move to go into executive session to discuss the appointment of a public officer.
A motion's been made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded, discussion from council members?
Just a question about the process. Like we appointed the new rec committee member earlier, I'm wondering why there's a departure from that standard procedure for this appointment.
Because I put this on the agenda, because I had some things that I think the council needs to know and can't be discussed in public because it involves human resource issues and to protect confidentiality.
Okay.
Any other questions? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, would it be out of order to ask if you expect to make a decision on 12 tonight? Is that out of order?
We're going in for number 11. 12. I haven't had discussion, I don't know.
And
And the next two, I don't know. I really don't know.
And what public office are we talking about?
The public officer would be the planning commission.
Appointment to the planning commission?
Yes.